my beef ragu. Now I made this back in November to have in the freezer so we could have meals on our trip. And tonight is a perfect night for ragu. It's cold and it's windy and we're going to snuggle up, watch a movie, and eat our beef ragu. I hope you enjoy.
Hi, I'm cold this morning, but I woke up this morning with the thought that I was making ossobuco because I had these shanks in the freezer that I wanted to make ossobuco with. And aren't they beautiful shanks? But after I got them out of the freezer, I have I'll just wash my hands, completely different sizes. Now, I could obviously still make ossobuco and just have different sizes because it's just going to braise up. But it kind of made me go in a different direction because I would rather them all be like this for ossobuco because then each person gets a serving that's just perfection. And these are a little bit small, I think, for that. So I turned around. I'm sticking with the Italian dish for these shanks, and I'm going to make a ragu. And we are trying to get meals into the freezer for when we start cruising. So without further ado, let's get started on the ragu. So I want to go ahead and get my vegetables done and out of the way, and that way when I need them, they're ready. Now I really like carrots in my ragus and spaghetti sauces. I like that sweetness that they add. So I'm going to do 3 carrots and I'm going to do 1 onion. But I really want to grate this so that they just helps them to melt into the sauce. And I'm going to be lazy this morning and not hand grate it. So I've got out the trusty food processor. So I'm going to process the carrots and the onions. Now I could cook my ragu just like this and not cut it up and just cook it on the bone. But it's going to take up so much more space in my pot. So I'm going to cut this off the bone and then I'll just use like 2 of the bones to throw in because they're going to add so much flavor. And then the other 2 bones I'm going to throw in the beef stock pile. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this off and measure it for you so we'll know about how much meat you want to buy if you're going out to make this ragu. And you can make this ragu with short ribs. You can make this ragu with chuck roast, with veal shanks, with lamb shanks. So this ragu will go with any of those kind of cuts of meat. So we want to know what our weight is off the bone. So this is one of our shanks that I've cut off of the bone. And then you just want to check the edges. And you can see here, so this is silver skin. So this silver skin we want to remove because it is never going to break down and melt into our sauce. So we ended up with just under 2 pounds of meat. I'm going to put 2 pounds in the recipe. And then we have these beautiful, beautiful bones and these little ones I'm going to put in this ragu. And you can just see that beautiful marrow in there. And it is going to make this so amazing. It's going to add so much flavor. And luckily for me, I'm making beef stock tomorrow. So these big hunk of ones, throw those in my beef stock. So it's going to be perfect. Now I've got my big Dutch oven on heating up. You could do this in a heavy bottom soup pot if you have the cast iron. Obviously, in my opinion, go for the cast iron. But I want to season with salt and pepper my meat here while that's heating up. And you could go with some olive oil here. This is it's going to get a little bit hot searing these, but you could go with some olive oil or some avocado oil. And I want to put this in the oven. I could do it on the stove top, but I'm just going to stick it in the oven today and kind of walk away and forget about it. So I'm going to put my oven on about 325. My olive oil's way back there. I'm going to give it just a swirl around in there. And we're just going to get a little browning on this meat. Cover it really well. There's no need to add any flour. We don't need any flour to thicken this up. So this sauce is going to be completely gluten-free. Just do it in batches so my pan's not crowded and it gets nice and even brown. And I have, one, two, three, I've got 5 cloves of garlic, but those are pretty good big hunks of garlic. And I know you've heard me talk about the importance of doing your garlic, chopping your garlic or smashing it a good 10 minutes before you cook with it, because that's going to help release that allicin, and that's where all those good healing properties are in that allicin, and it takes that time for them to work their way out. I have 2 cans of tomatoes, and of course, if you've listened to me long enough, you know that this is the only tomato that I stock on the boat is whole peeled tomatoes, and the San Marzano are my favorites. Now, here's what I look for when buying my canned tomatoes, and I don't know where my glasses went, that they don't have a bunch of added stuff. You know, a lot of them, there's citrus acid, not so much bad stuff, but when you can find products that don't have that, why have it? So this particular brand is Italian tomatoes and tomato juice. And this particular brand, which this is my favorite, if I find it, I stock up, and right now I can only find it at Publix. This particular brand is San Marzano peeled tomatoes with tomato puree, and that tomato puree is so beautiful. So this is what I'm going to do. Because this one's in the juice, I'm going to strain it, and then I'm going to puree those tomatoes. And because that one is in the puree, I'm just going to smush them up, and they're all going to go into the sauce. Now, do you have to get super complicated and have 2 different kinds, and one in juice and one in puree? No, you absolutely do not. You can have both the same kind. I'm just going to drain one and puree it and keep that liquid aside to see if I need it or not. I don't want this to be too thin.
All right, so these look nice and brown. I'm going to pull those out. I'm going to go just a swirl of oil and then in with my carrots and onions. And because these are shredded, it's going to take just a minute. So I'm going to do a good 2 tablespoons of tomato paste and give that a nice minute in there. So I made this morning just half of a recipe of my Italian seasoning, and I'm going to just start, yeah, I think I'll probably use it also. Well, so this is a tablespoon of that, and I added just a little bit more crushed red peppers than the recipe calls for because this ragu can withstand it. I think I'm going to wait. I think I'm going to go with that 1 tablespoon and then taste and maybe add more. So in that bowl that my onions and carrots are in, I'm going to dump that other can of tomato, the one in the nice puree. And you see that beautiful, how thick that beautiful puree is? It's so gorgeous. Love those tomatoes. And the reason I'm going to go ahead, well, there's 2 reasons, but one, I'm going to add my wine to this can and swirl it up, and that's going to help get all of that goodness out of there. And let me do the other can as well, and I'm going to go with probably a good cup of red wine. Swirl that around. And I just want to let that cook down for a couple of minutes. Let that alcohol burn off and just let that reduce down for a minute. Next, I'm going to add that meat with its juices back in there. I'm going to add my tomato puree that we made with that 1 can of tomatoes. And And then this is the other can of the tomatoes in that puree, and I'm just going to use my hand to break these up. And just break them up right there in my sauce. And next I have just a hunk of Parmesan cheese that I cut up into cubes. I'm gonna grate just a hint of fresh nutmeg. And I know we're not making bolognese. Well, maybe now we are, but I'm gonna do a big swirl of heavy cream in there. So that's looking pretty amazing, don't you think? So now we come to the optionals. And I have some fresh rosemary. I don't want to do too much rosemary. I'm just going to do like 3 sprigs to put it in some cheesecloth, and I don't have to worry about that. And I'm going to add some bay leaves, and then I'm just going to tie this up. So in with my rosemary and bay leaf. Now if you don't have the fresh rosemary, just throw in a couple bay leaves. So this is one of my little freezer compartments. I've got caramelized onions, basil, lemon, lime, and anchovies. I always like to buy those little tins of anchovies for Caesar salad, to make Caesar dressing, and it's always too many, so I just do them in one of those little ice trays into these little balls. And trust me on this, this is not going to taste fishy at all, but it is going to add beautiful umami to this dish. Oh, you know, now that I think about it, let's just bring that back out. And let's add that basil. I love having all these fun things in the freezer. Yep, it's just plain basil. I wasn't sure if it was basil or pesto, but it's just plain basil. So we will, although the pesto would be good too. I think I'm gonna have to thaw that out a minute. Okay, so we're throwing some basil in there. Again, these are all optional. We're gonna give this a taste before it goes in. Well, I think it's really good. So, you can put this on your simmer burner and simmer it, or you can put it in the oven at about 325, which I am electing to do. Wonder if I can pick it up. Probably not. And I'm going to say 2 hours, maybe more. We'll check on it. But for now, putting her in here. Oh, I got to lower my thing. So I'm going to put her in the oven, and I'm going to say 2.5 hours probably, but I'll come check on her in. Okay, I'm pulling her back out. I totally forgot. The shank bones. So I've got the 2 little shank bones, and I am nestling those little jewels in here. Okay, now it's ready to go in the oven. This is hour 1 check-in. Oh boy, the smell is amazing. Now right now it feels a little thin to me, but we still have some time to cook. So it could be that I cook it with the lid off for a little while to help it thicken up. But it's looking beautiful. So here we are. We're approaching hour 2, and I'm just skimming off some of that fat floating on top. So let's have a test of this meat and see if it's ready to just fall apart on us, and it's not quite there. It's still a little tough. So we're going back in. Well, we've made it to hour 3. We're gonna have a peek. So beautiful. I am going to skim one more time, just a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take out these pieces of meat, and they might not come out in one piece, but I want them to cool down so I can break them apart by hand. Get those bones up too. So look at that now. All that beautiful marrow has incorporated into this sauce. It's so brilliant. So I made the decision to just put this on the simmer and let it just reduce and thicken up a little bit while this cools enough to handle. But Let me show you just how easy that's pulling apart now. So delicious. I absolutely love shank. Well, I'm going to shred that up. And it's going to be swimming around in this amazing, beautiful sauce that we worked so hard on. And it wasn't that hard, really. I think the oven did all the work. But this is going to freeze beautifully. So I'm on that mission to do items in the freezer that not only freeze well, but then heat up well. And this is certainly one of those. So this is going to be probably at least 2 dinners for Billy and I at some point. I don't want that bubbling out of there. And you could serve this on risotto. You could serve this on pasta. You could serve this on polenta. You could serve this on spaghetti squash. So the possibilities are there, so you can change it up. So I pulled this off the heat because I think it's done. How beautiful. It's just, it's a gorgeous work of art. I'm going to season a little bit of salt. Now that I'm all done reducing, I'm going to add just a hint of salt to this, and we'll taste it and see what we think. So I'm going to let this cool. I'm going to vacuum pack this into 2 separate bags in the freezer. And there's 2 dinners ready when we need it. So delicious. I could eat and eat that. But I'm going to go with another big pinch of salt, and I think that's going to do it for us. I think when you buy silverware, sets of flatware, they should come with extra spoons, because I never have enough spoons. We have hit perfection. Y'all, thank you so much for making ragu with me today. Started out as a cool morning, and I got it nice and warmed up in the boat now making this. And as always, love you. Appreciate all of you being here with me. It was a great day. See you later. And until next time, safe cruising.